The stars looked different here. Captain Ji-won Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Dawn and watched the alien constellations through the main viewing screen. His ship had just crossed into enemy space. Behind them lay the safety of human territory. Ahead lay the Keltharian Empire. The Indomitable Dawn was huge. 1 kilometer long and 300 meters wide, it was one of the largest warships ever built by humans. Its dark metal hull bore the scars of many battles. Weapons ports lined its sides like the teeth of some great beast. The ship's engines glowed blue-white in the darkness of space. "Captain, we are now inside Keltharian space," said Lieutenant Minji Choi from her station. She was young but skilled, her fingers dancing over the control panels. "All systems are running normally." Ji-won nodded. He was a tall man with graying hair and hard eyes. Those eyes had seen too much war, too much death. But today, they held something else. Today, they held purpose. "Any response from the border stations?" he asked. "Yes, sir. They are sending warning messages. They want us to turn around and leave immediately," Minji replied. "Ignore them," Ji-won said simply. The bridge crew worked quietly around him. 2,000 people served on this ship. All of them knew this was probably a one-way trip. All of them had volunteered anyway. They had their reasons. Admiral Hyun-woo. Kim watched the reports come in from his command center on the border station. The readings were impossible to believe. A single human warship had just crossed into Keltharian space without permission. No one had ever done this before. "Sir, should we contact Earth Command?" asked his aide. "No," Hyun-woo said. "Captain Park has his orders. We do not interfere." The Keltharians controlled this part of space. They were a proud race of reptilian beings who had ruled here for 3,000 years. Their empire was vast and powerful. They considered themselves the masters of this region. But Hyun-woo knew something the Keltharians did not. Humans could be very dangerous when angry. And right now, humanity was very angry indeed. On the Keltharian border station Keth Prime, alarms were ringing. Commander Sekral rushed to the sensor station. The readings showed a massive unknown ship moving through their space. "What is that thing?" he demanded. "Unknown, Commander. It does not match any ship in our databases," replied the sensor operator. "Send a full squadron to intercept. I want that ship stopped." The squadron launched within minutes. 12 Keltharian fighters raced toward the human vessel. But when they got close enough to see it clearly, their pilots were shocked into silence. The ship was enormous. It moved slowly but steadily, like a mountain walking through space. Its weapons were bigger than their entire fighters. Strange symbols marked its hull, symbols they had never seen before. "This is Squadron Leader Vectar to unknown vessel. You are trespassing in Keltharian space. Turn around immediately or you will be destroyed." The human ship did not answer. It just kept moving. Back on the Indomitable Dawn, Communications Officer Tae-hyung Kang listened to the alien voices. He understood their language perfectly. All human military personnel learned the major alien languages. "Captain, they are demanding we turn around," he reported. "Let them demand," Ji-won replied. He was thinking about his daughter Yeji. She had been 23 years old when she died. Beautiful, smart, with her whole life ahead of her. She had volunteered to help establish a new colony on Kepler 442b. The Keltharians had attacked the colony 6 months ago. They called it a training exercise for their young warriors. 3,000 human settlers had died, including Yeji. The Keltharian government had refused to apologize or pay compensation. They said humans were weak and deserved to die. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Sir, the alien fighters are taking attack positions," reported Weapons Officer Do-Yun Yao. "Are our shields up?" Ji-won asked. "Yes, sir. All weapons are ready to fire." "Then let them come." The Keltharian fighters attacked with plasma bolts and energy missiles. The weapons struck the human ship's shields and disappeared like raindrops, hitting armor. The indomitable Dawn did not even slow down. "Impossible!" Vector shouted. "Our weapons did nothing." He had never seen shields so strong. But then, he had never fought humans before. Human technology was different. It was built by a species that had spent thousands of years fighting wars among themselves. Every weapon, every defense, every system was designed to kill or survive the most dangerous enemy of all: other humans. "Captain, should we return fire?" asked Do-Hyun. "Not yet," Ji-won said. "Let them waste their ammunition." Engineer So-young Nam monitored the ship's systems from her station. The enemy attacks were not even scratching their shields. The indomitable Dawn had been built to fight entire fleets. A few fighters were nothing. "All systems green, Captain," she reported. "We can keep this up all day." The Keltharian fighters kept attacking for an hour. Finally, their weapons ran out of energy. They had to retreat to recharge. Squadron Leader Vector was confused and afraid. "Command, this is Squadron Leader Vector. Our weapons have no effect on the enemy ship. I repeat, no effect at all." Commander Sekral could not believe what he was hearing. "That is impossible. Attack again." "Sir, we have no more energy. We must return to base." As the fighters retreated, the human ship continued its steady advance into Keltharian space. Word of the intrusion spread quickly through the Empire's communication networks. On the capital world of Kelthar Prime, Emperor Velthanor received the news in his throne room. He was ancient, even by Keltharian standards, and had ruled for over 2 centuries. In all that time, no one had dared challenge his empire. "Single ship?" he asked. "Yes, Your Majesty. It crossed our border and ignored all warnings. Our fighters could not damage it." The Emperor's clawed hand gripped his throne. "What species builds this ship?" "Unknown, Your Majesty. The ship bears markings we do not recognize. But deep in the Imperial archives, old records spoke of a dangerous species from the outer regions, a species that had once fought wars so terrible that entire star systems had been destroyed. The records called them the Void Reapers, beings of incredible violence who showed no mercy to their enemies. Most Keltharians thought these were just stories, ancient myths to frighten children. But the oldest among them remembered the warnings. Their grandfathers had whispered, "Pray the Void Reapers never find us." On the indomitable Dawn, Captain Ji-won Park looked at the star charts showing their course to the Keltharian capital. It would take weeks to reach their destination. Along the way, they would face the entire Keltharian military. He did not care. His daughter was dead, and someone had to pay the price. "Navigator Haeun Cho, set course for the next system," he ordered. "Course set, Captain." "Take us in." The great ship turned slightly and accelerated toward the heart of the Keltharian Empire. Behind them, emergency signals flashed across alien communication networks. Ahead of them, an empire that had never known fear was about to learn what terror really meant. The war had begun. The emergency meeting of the Keltharian High Command took place in the Great War Room beneath the capital. Dozens of military leaders gathered around a massive holographic display showing their territory. In the center, a red dot marked the position of the unknown ship. Admiral Tekval was the oldest officer present. His scales were pale with age, and his voice carried the weight of centuries. When he spoke, others listened. "This is not the first time such a ship has entered our space," he said slowly. The other officers looked at him in surprise. Fleet Commander Zarketh leaned forward. "What do you mean, Admiral?" "The archives speak of them. Ships that came from the void between stars, ships that brought death and fire. Our ancestors called them the Void Reapers." "Those are just old stories," said another officer. "Myths to scare children." Tekval's eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. "Are they? Look at this ship. It ignores our warnings. Our weapons cannot harm it. It moves through our space like it owns it. Does this sound like a myth to you?" Meanwhile, aboard the Indomitable Dawn, Intelligence Officer Suho Lee was listening to Keltharian communications. His equipment could intercept and translate almost everything the aliens sent to each other. "Captain, you need to hear this," he said. "Captain..." Jawan Park came to Suho's station. The young officer played back a recording of Keltharian voices speaking in their own language. "What are they saying?" Jiwan asked. "They are talking about old legends, sir. Stories about creatures called Void Reapers. Ships that brought destruction. From the darkness between stars, some of them think we might be these Void Reapers." Jiwan almost smiled. It was the first time he had felt like smiling in months. "Void Reapers, I like that. Sir, they are very afraid. Some of their border worlds are already talking about surrender." "Good. Fear will save lives, theirs and ours." In the lower levels of the Keltharian capital, citizens gathered around news screens. The official reports said only that an unknown ship had entered their space. But rumors spread faster than official news. In the markets and taverns, people whispered about the ancient stories. Old Keltharians remembered their grandparents speaking of the Void Reapers. Young ones searched the computer networks for any information about these mysterious beings. What they found terrified them. The oldest records spoke of a species that had fought wars beyond imagination. They had weapons that could destroy planets. They showed no mercy to enemies. They came from the darkness between stars, and they brought only death. "But they disappeared," said a young Keltharian to his friends. "The stories say they vanished thousands of years ago." "Maybe they did not disappear," said an older one. "Maybe they just went away, and now they have come back." Fleet Admiral Nara Shin sat in her private quarters aboard the Indomitable Dawn, reading the intelligence reports. The psychological advantage was better than she had hoped. The Keltharians were already afraid, and they had not even seen what the ship could really do. Nara was one of the few people who knew the full truth about their mission. This was not just about revenge for the colony. This was about sending a message to every alien species in the galaxy. Humans were not weak. Humans were not helpless, and humans protected their own. She thought about the months of planning that had led to this moment. The ship had been prepared in secret. The crew had been chosen carefully. Every person aboard had volunteered, knowing they might not return home. But they all had reasons to be here. Some had lost family in the colony attack. Others had lost friends. Some were here simply because they believed it was right to protect innocent humans from alien aggression. Back in the Keltharian Command Center, new reports were coming in. The mysterious ship had entered the Vorthak system and was heading toward the inner planets. Military bases throughout the region were being placed on high alert. "How long until our main fleet can intercept?" asked Emperor Velthanor. 3 days, Your Majesty," replied Admiral Tekval. "But I must warn you, If this truly is a Void Reaper ship, our fleet may not be enough. Nonsense. We have the most powerful military in this sector of space. One ship cannot defeat an entire empire. But even as he spoke those words, the Emperor felt doubt creeping into his mind. The reports were too strange. A ship that could not be damaged. A ship that ignored all threats. A ship that moved through their space as if it had every right to be there. On the border worlds, panic was spreading. Keltharian families began loading their belongings onto transport ships. They remembered the old stories too well. The Void Reapers had never shown mercy. They had never taken prisoners. They had come, destroyed their enemies completely, and then disappeared back into the void. Captain Jiwan Park stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking out at the stars. His daughter Yeji had loved to look at the stars. She had dreamed of exploring new worlds, meeting new species, building a better future for everyone. The Keltharians had killed that dream along with her. Captain? Lieutenant Minji Choi had come to find him. Sir, we are receiving more communications from the enemy. They are demanding to know what we want. What do we want? Jiwan repeated. We want justice. We want them to understand that actions have consequences. We want them to know that humans are not victims. Should I send a response, sir? Not yet. Let them wonder. Let them imagine. Fear is a powerful weapon, and right now it is working for us. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Salmon Park was preparing for what was to come. She had no relation to the captain, but she understood his pain. She had lost her own brother in the colony attack. The medical bay was clean and quiet, filled with the most advanced medical equipment humanity could build. But she knew that soon it would be filled with wounded crew members. The Keltharians would not surrender without a fight. She checked her supplies one more time. Bandages, surgical tools, medicines, everything needed to keep people alive in the middle of a war. The irony was not lost on her. She was here to save lives while surrounded by weapons designed to take them. In the ship's engine room, Chief Engineer So-Young Nam monitored the massive fusion reactors that powered the Indomitable Dawn. The ship was running perfectly, all systems operating at peak efficiency. But she knew the real test was still to come. When the fighting started, the ship would need every bit of power she could give it. The weapons would demand enormous energy. The shields would need constant power to stay strong. The engines would have to push the ship through battle maneuvers that would stress every component. "How are we looking, Chief?" asked her assistant. "Good. Very good. This ship was built to fight, and it is ready to do its job." Across the galaxy, word of the mysterious ship was spreading. Other alien species were watching to see what would happen. Some were enemies of the Keltharians and hoped to see the proud empire humbled. Others were allies and were considering whether to offer help, but most were simply afraid. If one ship could challenge the mighty Keltharian Empire, what did that say about the species that built it? The Indomitable Dawn continued its steady advance toward the heart of enemy territory. Behind it, Keltharian space was in chaos. Ahead of it, the Empire's most powerful fleets were preparing for battle. Captain Jiwan Park knew the hardest part was still to come. The Keltharians would send everything they had to stop his ship. Thousands would die in the fighting that followed. But his daughter would be avenged, and the galaxy would learn a lesson it would never forget. Humanity remembers. Humanity protects its own, and humanity punishes those who harm the innocent. The Void Reapers had returned. and the Empire trembled in fear. The Keltharian patrol fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of the indomitable Dawn. 12 warships arranged themselves in battle formation, their weapons powered and ready. These were not small fighters like before. These were real warships, each one capable of destroying a city. Sub-Admiral Rektan commanded the fleet from his flagship Keth destroyer. He was young for a Keltharian admiral, his scales still dark green with youth. He had earned his position through skill and aggression, not politics. Today, he would prove himself against this mysterious intruder. Unknown vessel. This is Sub-Admiral Rektan of the Keltharian Imperial Navy. You have violated our space and ignored our warnings. Surrender immediately or you will be destroyed. On the bridge of the indomitable Dawn, Captain Jiwan Park watched the enemy fleet on his main screen. The Keltharian ships were sleek and dangerous-looking, with swept-back hulls and multiple weapon pods. Against most enemies, they would be formidable. But Captain Park had fought in the human colonial wars. He had seen what real warships could do when pushed to their limits. These alien vessels looked impressive, but they were built by a species that had not faced serious opposition in centuries. "Captain, they are demanding surrender," reported Communications Officer Taehyung Kang. "Give them my response," Jiwan said calmly. Taehyung activated the communication system. Captain Park's voice was broadcast to the entire Keltharian fleet, cold and emotionless. "You attacked our colony on Kepler 442b. You murdered 3,000 innocent people, including children. You refused to apologize or make amends. You called us weak. Today, you learn the price of your arrogance." Sub-Admiral Rektan felt his blood chill at those words. The voice was completely calm, showing no anger or fear. It was the voice of someone who had already decided what was going to happen. "Human ship, you are outnumbered 12-1. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war." The response came back immediately. "There will be no surrender." Rektan looked at his tactical display. His 12 ships surrounded the human vessel. Each of his ships carried enough firepower to level a continent. Together, they should be able to destroy any single ship ever built. But doubt gnawed at him. The reports from the border stations had been disturbing. Their weapons had done no damage at all. Their fighters had been helpless. What if the same thing happened here? "All ships, prepare to fire," he ordered. "Target their engines and weapons. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need to learn about their technology." But even as he gave the order, he had a terrible feeling that he was making a mistake. On the indomitable Dawn, Weapons Officer Do Yoon Yu was running final checks on the ship's armament. The main guns were massive kinetic accelerators that could fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The secondary weapons were plasma batteries and missile launchers. But the real advantage was not just the weapons themselves. It was the targeting systems, the fire control computers, the tactical software. Human military technology had been refined through centuries of the most brutal warfare imaginable. Every system was designed to kill enemies as efficiently as possible. "All weapons ready, Captain," Do-hyun reported. "Target their flagship first, then work your way through the rest." "Understood, sir." Navigator Haeyeon Cho was a small woman, but her hands were steady on the ship's controls. She had flown fighters in the colonial wars before transferring to capital ships. She knew how to make a big ship dance. "Evasive maneuvers ready, Captain. We can give them a moving target." "Good. Once the shooting starts, keep us moving." The two fleets faced each other across the darkness of space. For a moment, everything was quiet, except for the hum of engines and the whisper of life support systems. Then Sub-Admiral Rektan gave the order. "All ships, open fire!" 12 Keltharian warships unleashed their full firepower at once. Energy, beams and plasma bolts streaked across space toward the human ship. Missiles followed, their engines glowing bright against the stars. The weapons struck the indomitable Dawn's shields in a spectacular display of light and energy. For a moment, the entire ship was surrounded by a brilliant glow as the shields absorbed the tremendous impact. When the light faded, the human ship was still there. Undamaged. Untouched. "Impossible!" Rektan shouted. "Check your sensors! Check your weapons!" His officers worked frantically at their stations. "All systems functioning normally, sir. Direct hits on target. But their shields did not even flicker." Captain Park watched the enemy fleet with cold satisfaction. "Their turn is over. Now it is ours. All weapons, fire!" The indomitable Dawn responded with devastating force. The main kinetic accelerators fired first, sending projectiles racing toward the enemy at incredible speed. The projectiles were simple chunks of metal, but they hit with the force of nuclear weapons. The first shot struck the Keltharian flagship, dead center. The kinetic energy punched through their shields like they were made of paper. The projectile continued through the ship's hull, tearing a massive hole from bow to stern. The Keth destroyer exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness. Sub-Admiral Rektan died instantly, never knowing what had hit him. The other human weapons fired in sequence. Plasma batteries sent streams of superheated matter toward their targets. Missiles accelerated away from the ship, their guidance systems locked onto enemy vessels. The Keltharian ships tried to evade, but they were too slow. One by one, they were hit and destroyed. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against kinetic projectiles traveling at such high speeds. Within 5 minutes, 8 Keltharian warships had been destroyed. The remaining 4 were badly damaged and trying to escape. "Should we pursue them, Captain?" asked Do Yun. "No. Let them go. Let them tell others what they have seen." The surviving Keltharian ships limped away as fast as their damaged engines could carry them. Behind them, burning wreckage drifted through space. The proud patrol fleet had been destroyed by a single human vessel. On the bridge of the indomitable Dawn, the crew watched the enemy retreat. There was no celebration, no cheering. They had done their job efficiently and professionally. That was all. Engineer So-Young Nam checked the ship's status. "Minimal shield drain, Captain. All systems operating normally. We are ready for the next engagement. Casualties?" "None, sir." Captain Park nodded. The first test was over. They had proven that human technology was superior to anything the Keltharians possessed. But this was just the beginning. In the ship's communications center, intelligence officer Suho Lee was monitoring Keltharian military frequencies. The panic in their voices was clear, even through the translation software. "Captain, they are calling. For reinforcements, all available ships are being ordered to converge on our position." "How many ships?" "From the communications I am intercepting, hundreds, sir, maybe thousands." Captain Park showed no emotion. He had expected this. The Keltharians could not allow a single ship to destroy their forces and continue deeper into their territory. They would throw everything they had at the indomitable Dawn. "Very well. Signal the crew. Battle stations." This was just the warm-up. News of the battle spread quickly through Keltharian space. The official reports spoke of a tactical withdrawal and regrouping for a counterattack. But the survivors told a different story. They spoke of weapons that could not be stopped. of shields that absorbed any attack without damage, of a ship that fought like a demon from the darkest myths. On the capital world, Emperor Velthanor received the news in stunned silence. 12 of his best warships destroyed by a single enemy vessel. It was beyond comprehension. "Gather the fleet," he ordered. "Every ship we have, every weapon, every warrior. This ends now." But deep in his heart, doubt was growing. What if the old stories were true? What if the Void Reapers really had returned? The indomitable Dawn continued its journey toward the heart of the Keltharian Empire. Behind it, the wreckage of the patrol. Fleet drifted in the darkness. Ahead, the largest space battle in galactic history was beginning to take shape. Captain Jiwon Park thought of his daughter Yeji as he prepared for the battles to come. She had believed in peace between species, in cooperation and understanding. But sometimes peace could only be achieved through strength. The Keltharians had chosen war when they attacked innocent colonists. Now they would face the consequences of that choice. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were called the Void Reapers. Emperor Velthanor stood before the great assembly on Kelthar Prime, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. Representatives from across the Empire had gathered for this emergency session. Never before in Keltharian history had such a meeting been called. "Citizens of the Empire," the Emperor began, his ancient voice carrying authority built over centuries of rule. "We face a threat unlike any we have encountered before. A single ship has penetrated our borders and destroyed our patrol fleets. But we will not allow this insult to stand." The representatives listened in tense silence. Many had heard the reports. From the border regions, some had seen the recordings of the destroyed ships. Fear was spreading through the Empire like a plague. "I hereby order the mobilization of the Grand Fleet. Every available warship, every trained crew, every weapon in our arsenal will be brought to bear against this intruder. The combined might of 3,000 years of Keltharian military power will end this threat once and for all." The order went out across subspace communications to every corner of the Empire. Military bases that had been quiet for decades suddenly burst into activity. Ships that had been in maintenance were rushed back into service. Reserve crews were called up from civilian life. Within hours, the largest military mobilization in galactic history was underway. Admiral Kethmore commanded the Grand Fleet from his flagship Imperial Might. He was a veteran of dozens of campaigns, his scales bearing the ritual scars of a warrior who had proven himself in battle. As reports came in from across the Empire, even he was impressed by the scope of the mobilization. "Admiral, final count is in," reported his aide. 312 capital ships, 800 cruisers, over 2,000 fighters, and support vessels. Total crew strength, 400,000 warriors. Kethmore nodded slowly. "The largest fleet ever assembled by any species in this sector. Surely this will be enough." But privately, he wondered. The reports from the survivors of the patrol fleet had been disturbing. Weapons that could punch through any shield, a ship that moved like it was alive, technology that seemed impossible. Still, numbers had to count for something. No single ship, no matter how advanced, could stand against the combined firepower of the entire Keltharian military. Aboard the indomitable Dawn, communications specialist Tae-Hyung Kang was having the busiest day of his career. Keltharian military traffic had increased 100-fold as they coordinated their massive mobilization. His computers were working overtime to intercept and decode the flood of messages. "Captain, you need to see this," he called. "Captain Jiwon." Park came to the communication station. Tai-Hyung pulled up a three-dimensional display showing ship movements throughout Keltharian space. Hundreds of icons were moving toward a single point. They are gathering everything they have, sir. Every ship in their empire is being sent to intercept us. How many ships total? Best estimate based on communication traffic. Over 3,000 vessels, sir. For the first time since the mission began, Captain Park felt a flicker of doubt. The Indomitable Dawn was the most powerful warship ever. Built by humans, but 3,000 enemy ships was an almost unimaginable number. But then he thought of Yeji again. His daughter's face, bright with hope as she prepared to leave for the colony. Her excitement about building something new, something better. Her belief that all species could work together in peace. The Keltharians had destroyed that hope along with her life. No matter how many ships they brought, justice would be served. Signal the crew, he ordered. All hands to battle stations. Prepare for extended combat operations. In the ship's tactical center, Strategic Officer Jihoon Bae was studying the intelligence reports with growing concern. He was responsible for planning the ship's combat operations, and the numbers were not encouraging. Doctor, do you have a moment? He asked Dr. Soman Park as she passed through the tactical center. Of course. What is it? We are about to face the largest fleet in recorded galactic history. Even with our technological advantages, the odds are challenging. Dr. Park sat down beside him. She had known Jihoon for years, had served with him in the colonial wars. He was not a man who panicked easily. Are you having second thoughts? She asked gently. No, not about the mission. We are here for the right reasons. But I have to ask myself, what are the chances we will survive this? Does it matter? Jihoon looked at her in surprise. What do you mean? We all knew this was probably a one-way trip when we volunteered. We came anyway, because some things are more important than survival, like justice, like protecting innocent people, like making sure the galaxy knows that humans are not victims. She stood up to leave, then paused. Besides, I have faith in this ship and this crew. We might just surprise everyone. In the Empire's War Planning Center, Keltharian military leaders were working around the clock to coordinate the massive fleet gathering. Supply ships rushed to deliver ammunition and fuel. Medical vessels prepared for the casualties that would surely follow. General Vorthak was in charge of logistics. He had organized military campaigns across half the galaxy, but nothing on this scale. The sheer number of ships was straining their supply networks to the breaking point. Sir, we have a problem, reported one of his assistants. The fleet is so large that we cannot supply them all from a single base. We will need to establish multiple supply depots. Do it. Strip supplies from every base in the Empire if necessary. This fleet must have everything it needs. But even as he gave the orders, Vorthak wondered if they were making a mistake. Military history was full of examples where larger armies had been defeated by smaller, more mobile forces. Size was not everything in warfare. News of the massive mobilization spread beyond Keltharian space. Other alien governments watched the developments with great interest. Some saw an opportunity to weaken their old rivals. Others worried about what this unknown ship might mean for galactic peace. Ambassador Telvoran of the Zephyrian Republic met with his council in their capital city. The Zephyrians had been rivals of the Keltharians for centuries, fighting several wars over disputed territories. Should we offer assistance to the unknown ship? Asked one counselor. We know nothing about these newcomers, Telvoran replied. They might be worse than the Keltharians. For now, we watch and wait. Similar conversations were taking place in capitals across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see how this confrontation would end. Back on the Indomitable Dawn, Chief Engineer So-Young Nam was pushing the ship's systems to their absolute limits. The fusion reactors were running at maximum output, generating the enormous amounts of power needed for weapons and shields. "Ma'am, the reactor temperatures are getting close to the red line," warned her assistant. "I know. Keep monitoring them. We will need every bit of power we can generate for what is coming." She thought about the engineering challenges they would face in the battle ahead. 3,000 enemy ships meant thousands of weapons firing at them simultaneously. Even their advanced shields would be pushed beyond their design limits. But human engineers had always been good at making things work beyond their supposed capabilities. She would find a way to keep the ship fighting no matter what. In his private quarters, Captain Jaiwan Park sat looking at a photograph of his daughter. Yeji smiled back at him from the picture, young and full of life. She had been so excited about the colony mission, about the chance to build something new. A soft chime indicated someone was at his door. "Come in." Fleet Admiral Narration entered, her expression serious. "Captain, I wanted to discuss our tactical situation before the battle begins. Please, sit down." Ji-won put the photograph away. "What are your thoughts?" "We have two advantages that might allow us to survive what is coming. First, our technology is superior to anything they have. Second, they do not really understand what they are facing. And our disadvantages? Numbers. Pure, overwhelming numbers. Even if we destroy 10 ships for every hit they score on us, they can still overwhelm us through sheer volume of fire." Ji-won nodded. "What do you recommend?" "We cannot fight them in a traditional battle. We need to use mobility, surprise, psychological warfare. Make them afraid. Force them to make mistakes, like our ancestors did against larger armies throughout human history." "Exactly. David versus Goliath, but with starships." As the Indomitable Dawn continued toward the gathering storm, its crew prepared for the greatest battle any of them had ever faced. They checked weapons, ran diagnostics, said quiet prayers to whatever gods they believed in. Behind them, the Keltharian Empire was mobilizing everything it had. Ahead of them, 3,000 warships were gathering in the Zerion system, waiting to deliver what their commanders believed would be the final blow against the mysterious intruder. Neither side fully understood what was about to happen. The Keltharians thought they were facing a single, isolated enemy that could be destroyed through overwhelming force. The humans knew they were about to face impossible odds in a battle that would determine the fate of their mission. But both sides were certain of one thing: the next battle would decide everything. Either the Indomitable Dawn would be destroyed, or the Keltharian Empire would face a humiliation that would echo through history. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see which outcome would prevail. The Zerion system had never seen so many ships at once. 3,000 Keltharian vessels filled the space around the fourth planet, their hulls gleaming like scales under the light of the orange star. The Grand Fleet was arranged in perfect formation, layer upon layer of firepower, waiting for their target to arrive. Emperor Velthanor himself had come to witness the battle. His personal command ship Eternal Glory sat at the center of the formation, surrounded by the most powerful warships in the Empire. From here, he would watch the destruction of the mysterious intruder that had dared to challenge Keltharian might. "Your Majesty, the enemy ship is approaching the edge of the system," reported Admiral Kethmore from the fleet flagship. "All ships are in position?" "Yes, Your Majesty. Every vessel is ready for battle. The moment the enemy enters weapons range, we will unleash everything we have." The Emperor felt a deep satisfaction. This show of force would remind the galaxy why the Keltharian Empire was feared across the stars. Other species would see what happened to those who challenged their authority. Light hours away, the indomitable Dawn dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Xerion system. The sensors immediately detected the massive enemy fleet waiting for them. "Captain, I am reading over 3,000 enemy vessels," reported sensor operator Minji Choi. "They are arranged in a defensive formation around the fourth planet." "Captain," Ji-Won Park studied the tactical display. The Keltharian fleet covered an enormous area of space. Every approach route was blocked by overlapping fields of fire. It was a perfect defensive formation designed to destroy any attacking force. "They want us to come to them," he said quietly. "Sir," asked Tactical Officer Jahoon Bey, "look at their formation. They are waiting for us to attack them on their terms. They want to use their numbers advantage to overwhelm us with concentrated fire." "What are your orders, Captain?" Ji-Won smiled grimly. "We give them what they want, but not the way they expect it. Signal all stations. Attack formation. Take us in." The indomitable Dawn began its approach toward the enemy fleet. Navigator Hyun Cho plotted a course that would take them straight through the center of the Keltharian formation. It looked like suicide, but Captain Park had learned something important during the colonial wars. Sometimes the most direct approach was the last thing an enemy expected. As the human ship entered the outer edge of the Keltharian formation, Emperor Velthanor opened communications to the entire fleet. His voice was broadcast to every ship, every crew member, every warrior in his grand armada. "Warriors of the Empire, today we face an enemy that has insulted our honor and challenged our might. They come to us with a single ship against our thousands. Show them the price of their arrogance. Show the galaxy the power of the Keltharian Empire." The response from the fleet was immediate. Thousands of weapons powered up simultaneously. Energy readings spiked across the formation as every ship prepared to fire at once. On the indomitable Dawn, Weapons Officer Do Yun Yu was making final preparations. Unlike the enemy, who planned to fire everything at once, he would target specific ships in a carefully planned sequence. "All weapons ready, Captain. Main guns loaded with high-velocity penetrators. Secondary batteries charged to full power. Wait for my command. Let them fire first. Sir? Trust me." The two forces closed on each other across the darkness of space. The single human ship, dark and scarred, moving steadily toward the massive alien fleet. 3,000 Keltharian vessels, their weapons glowing with deadly energy, waiting for the order to fire. When the indomitable Dawn entered maximum weapons range, Admiral Kethmore gave the command that would begin the largest space battle in galactic history. "All ships, open fire, destroy the enemy." 3,000 warships fired at once. The space between the fleets was filled with energy beams, plasma bolts, and missile trails. It was as if a star had exploded in slow motion, brilliant streams of destruction racing toward the lone human vessel. The barrage struck the indomitable Dawn's shields with the force of a small sun. The entire ship disappeared in a sphere of blazing energy as weapon after weapon found its target. The display was so bright that crew members on the Keltharian ships had to shield their eyes. For 30 seconds, the bombardment continued. Every weapon in the Keltharian fleet poured its fury into the human ship, enough firepower to sterilize a planet focused on a single target. When the firing stopped, Emperor Velthanor leaned forward in his command chair. Surely nothing could survive such an attack. The space where the enemy ship had been was still glowing with residual energy. Then the glow began to fade, and the indomitable Dawn was still there. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Kethmore. "Sensors, report!" "Sir, the enemy ship shows no damage. Their shields are holding at full strength." A terrible silence fell over the Keltharian fleet. They had just fired every weapon they had, delivered enough destruction to crack a moon, and their target was completely unharmed. Captain Park's voice suddenly echoed across every ship in the enemy fleet. His words were calm, cold, and final. "You had your turn. Now you see what real power looks like." The indomitable Dawn responded with its own attack. But where the Keltharians had fired wildly in all directions, the human ship targeted with surgical precision. The main kinetic accelerators fired first. Massive projectiles, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, streaked toward the largest Keltharian ships. The first shot struck the flagship Imperial Might, punching completely through its shields and hull. The proud warship exploded, like a firecracker. Admiral Kethmore died without understanding what had killed him. The secondary weapons fired in a carefully planned sequence. Plasma batteries sent streams of superheated matter toward enemy cruisers. Missile launchers released clouds of smart projectiles that sought out the most dangerous targets. But it was the ship's movement that truly shocked the Keltharians. Navigator Heian Cho sent the massive vessel dancing through their formation like a fighter craft. The indomitable Dawn twisted and turned between enemy ships, its weapons firing constantly. Every shot found its target. Every target was destroyed. "Impossible," Emperor Velthanor shouted. "How can something so large move like that?" His science advisor, an elderly Keltharian named Texan, studied the sensor readings with growing amazement. "Your Majesty, their inertial compensators are beyond anything we have ever seen. They can change direction without the crew feeling any acceleration at all." "Then stop them. All ships, pursue and destroy." But the Keltharian fleet was too large to maneuver effectively. Ships collided with each other as they tried to track the fast-moving human vessel. Communication frequencies were jammed with panicked voices as captains tried to coordinate their attacks. The indomitable Dawn took advantage of the chaos. Captain Park directed his ship toward the densest part of the enemy formation, using their own numbers against them. "Fire into that cruiser formation," he ordered. "Make them scatter." Do-Hyun sent a spread of missiles into a group of 12 Keltharian cruisers. The ships tried to evade, but in doing so they crashed into other vessels in their formation. What started as an organized battle line became a confused mass of ships firing in all directions. Some Keltharian shots hit their own vessels by mistake. Others missed completely as their targets moved too quickly to track. The careful formation that Admiral Kethmore had spent days organizing fell apart in minutes. Engineer So-Young Nam was fighting her own battle in the engine room. The ship's systems were being pushed harder than ever before. Weapons demands, shield, power, engine thrust, everything was running at maximum capacity. "Ma'am, we are getting some fluctuations in the port shield generator," warned her assistant. "Reroute power from secondary systems. Keep those shields up no matter what." "Yes, ma'am." She wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked. The enemy was scoring hits now, finding gaps in their defenses as they moved through the massive fleet. But the ship's advanced systems were holding together. Dr. Salman Park was busy in the medical bay. The first casualties were arriving. Crew members injured when enemy fire got through their defenses. She worked quickly to stabilize the wounded while preparing for more to come. "Doctor, how many casualties so far?" asked her chief nurse. 17 injured, 3 serious." But it could be much worse. The ship is holding together better than I expected. In the tactical center, Ji-hoon Bei was tracking the progress of the battle. On his displays, red icons representing enemy ships were disappearing at an alarming rate. The indomitable Dawn was cutting through the Keltharian fleet like a sword. Through paper. "Captain, enemy fleet strength is down to 60% and falling," he reported. "How are our systems holding up?" "Shields at 70% power. Weapons fully operational. Engines running hot but stable." Captain Park nodded. They were winning, but the cost was mounting. Every hit they took weakened their defenses. Eventually, even their superior technology would not be enough. But they did not need to destroy every enemy ship. They just needed to break their will to fight. Across the Keltharian fleet, panic was spreading. Ships that had never known defeat were fleeing in terror. Captains who had served the Empire faithfully for decades were abandoning their posts. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Emergency broadcasts carried the impossible story to every corner of Keltharian space and beyond. A single ship had destroyed the Grand Fleet. The Empire's greatest military force, assembled over centuries of conquest, had been shattered in a matter of hours. On the capital world of Kelthar Prime, crowds gathered around public information screens in stunned silence. Citizens who had grown up believing their empire was invincible watched footage of burning warships and fleeing survivors. Many could not believe what they were seeing. "This must be propaganda," said one young Keltharian to his friends. "No single ship could defeat our entire fleet." But the evidence was undeniable. Sensor recordings from the battle showed the impossible truth. The mysterious vessel had torn through their defenses like they were made of paper. Weapons that should have destroyed planets had bounced harmlessly off its shields. In the government, district emergency sessions were being held in every ministry. Military commanders who had survived the battle gave their reports to stunned officials. The stories they told sounded like fantasy, but the wreckage in Zerian system proved they were real. General Vorthak, who had been responsible for supplying the Grand Fleet, stood before a panel of senior officials. His career was over. He knew that. But he had to tell them the truth. "The enemy technology is beyond anything we have encountered," he reported. "Their weapons can penetrate any shield we possess. Their defenses can absorb attacks that would destroy a moon. Their ship moves with agility that should be impossible for something so large." "What do you recommend?" asked the defense minister. "Surrender. Immediate, unconditional surrender before they reach the capital." The room erupted in angry voices. Surrender was unthinkable. The Keltharian Empire had never surrendered to anyone. But as the arguments continued, more reports came in from across their territory. Frontier worlds were evacuating without being ordered to do so. Entire star systems were broadcasting messages of surrender, hoping to avoid the fate of the Grand Fleet. The Empire was falling apart from within, consumed by fear of the approaching human ship. Aboard the indomitable Dawn, Captain Ji-won Park stood in the observation lounge, looking out at the wreckage of the battle. Hundreds of destroyed Keltharian ships drifted in the darkness, silent monuments to the price of aggression. He felt no joy at the victory. Too many had died, on both sides. His daughter Yeji would not have wanted this level of destruction. She had believed in peace, in finding solutions that did not require bloodshed. But some lessons could only be taught through force. The Keltharians had chosen violence when they attacked the human colony. Now they were learning what violence truly meant when directed by a species that had perfected it over millennia of warfare. "Captain, Lieutenant Minji Choi approached quietly. Sir, we are receiving communications from across Keltharian space. Surrender offers from over 50 star systems. What kind of offers? Complete capitulation, sir. They are offering to lay down their weapons and submit to human authority. Some are even offering tribute payments. Ji-won turned from the window. Send the same message to all of them. We are not here to conquer territory or collect tribute. We are here to deliver justice for the innocent people who died on Kepler 442b. Yes, sir. And Captain, we are also receiving communications from other alien governments. They want to know our intentions. Tell them we have no quarrel with anyone except those who attack human colonies. As long as they leave our people alone, we leave them alone. It was a simple message, but its implications were enormous. Humanity had just announced itself as a major power in galactic politics. The age of considering humans weak or helpless was over. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Soman Park was treating the last of the wounded from the battle. 23 crew members had been injured when enemy fire penetrated their defenses. 3 had died despite her best efforts. She thought about the thousands of Keltharian casualties from the battle, young warriors who had followed orders and died for their leaders' mistakes. Families who would never see their loved ones return home. War was always a tragedy, even when it was necessary. But she knew Captain Park was right. Sometimes violence was the only language that certain people understood. Security Chief Junho Lee was monitoring intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The reaction to their victory was fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Captain, you should see this, he called as Ji-won entered the security center. What is it? Reports from our intelligence network. 3 alien governments have just announced increases in their military budgets. 2 others are canceling planned attacks on their neighbors. Everyone is reconsidering their strategic positions. Because of one battle? Because of what that battle represents, sir. Humanity just proved we can project military power anywhere in the galaxy. Every government is asking themselves, what if we anger the humans? Ji-won nodded slowly. This was exactly what they had hoped to achieve. Not conquest, but deterrence. Not expansion, but protection for human colonies across the galaxy. On the bridge, Communications Officer Tai Hyung Kong was sorting through hundreds of messages from Keltharian officials. Military commanders, planetary governors, even members of the Imperial Court were trying to contact the human ship. Captain, Emperor Velthanor himself is requesting a direct communication, he reported. Put him through. The main screen activated, showing the ancient Keltharian ruler in his throne room. His scales had lost their luster, and his eyes held the look of someone who had seen his world crumble around him. Captain of the human vessel, the Emperor began, his voice heavy with defeat. I speak for the Keltharian Empire. We wish to discuss terms. There are no terms to discuss, Ji-won replied coldly. You attacked our colony. You murdered innocent people. You refused to take responsibility for your actions. Now you face the consequences. What do you want? Territory? Resources? We can give you anything you desire. I want you to remember this moment. I want your entire empire to remember what happens when humans are threatened. I want the galaxy to know that humanity protects its own. The Emperor leaned forward desperately. Please show mercy. Our worlds are defenseless. Our fleets are scattered. You could destroy us completely. Yes, I could, Ji-won agreed. But I am not here to destroy your empire. I am here to ensure it never threatens human colonies again. The communication ended, leaving the Emperor staring at a blank screen. Around him, his advisors whispered among themselves. The most powerful empire in this region of space had just been brought to its knees by a single ship. Intelligence Officer Suho Lee was analyzing Keltharian military communications, looking for signs of continued resistance. What he found surprised him. "Captain, the Keltharian military is standing down across their entire territory. Fleets are returning to base. Ground forces are being recalled from frontier positions. They appear to be ceasing all offensive operations." "Completely?" "Yes, sir. It appears our demonstration has convinced them that further resistance is futile." This was better than Jiwon had dared hope. He had expected to fight his way to the Keltharian capital, destroying fleet after fleet until they surrendered. Instead, the psychological impact of their victory was doing the work for them. Fear was proving to be their most effective weapon. In the ship's engine room, Chief Engineer So-Young Nam was overseeing repairs to the systems damaged in the battle. The indomitable Dawn had taken a beating, but its robust construction was holding up well. "Ma'am, shield generators are back to full power," reported her assistant. "Weapon systems are all operational. We could fight another battle if necessary." "Let us hope it is not necessary," So-Young replied. "We have made our point. Now we need to see if they learned the lesson." Across the galaxy, governments were holding emergency meetings to discuss the implications of the battle. The sudden appearance of such a powerful human warship had changed everything. Ambassador Telvaran of the Zephyrian Republic met with his military advisors in a secure conference room. The Zephyrians had been planning an attack on Keltharian border worlds, but now those plans were being reconsidered. "Should we proceed with the operation?" asked General Mordan. "Absolutely not," Telvaran replied. "If the humans are protecting Keltharian space now, we do not want to provoke them. Cancel all offensive operations immediately." Similar conversations were taking place in capitals across the region. Military campaigns were canceled. Aggressive policies were reversed. Trade routes that had been closed due to military tensions were reopened. The mere presence of one human warship was bringing more peace to the galaxy than decades of diplomacy had achieved. Navigator Haeun Cho plotted their course toward the Keltharian capital system. At their current speed, they would arrive in 3 days, but reports suggested they might not need to fire another shot. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting massive refugee movements throughout Keltharian space," she reported. "Civilian ships are fleeing toward the outer colonies." "Are they fleeing from us or from their own government?" "Hard to tell, sir. But the traffic patterns suggest general panic rather than organized evacuation." Jiwon felt a pang of regret. He had not wanted to terrorize innocent. Emperor Velthanor sat alone in his private chambers, staring at reports that told the story of his empire's collapse. In 3 days since the battle at Zerion, 47 star systems had declared independence. Military commanders were refusing orders. Entire fleets had simply stopped responding to communications. The empire he had ruled for over 2 centuries was falling apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. A soft chime announced that someone was requesting entry. "Come," he said wearily. His chief advisor, an ancient Keltharian named Sektan, entered with yet another stack of reports. His normally composed expression showed the strain of the past few days. "Your Majesty, I bring news from the frontier." "Sectors. More surrenders?" "Worse. The Proxima colonies have expelled all imperial administrators and declared themselves a free republic. The Vega system has announced it is now under human protection. 3 more sector governors have fled their posts. Velthanor closed his eyes. How many systems remain loyal? Perhaps 30%, Your Majesty. And that number falls every hour. The Emperor stood and walked to the great window overlooking his capital city. Below, he could see crowds of citizens gathering in the streets. Some were protesting his leadership, others were demanding immediate surrender to the humans. The unity that had held his empire together for millennia was gone. Sire, there is something else. We have received another communication from the human ship. What do they say now? They are 3 hours away from our system. They request permission to enter Kelthar space. Velthanor laughed bitterly. They request permission? After destroying our fleet and humiliating our empire, they ask for permission? I believe it is meant as a final warning, Your Majesty. They are giving us the chance to surrender before they arrive. The Emperor turned from the window. For the first time in his long life, he felt truly old. Summon the High Council. It is time to decide the fate of our people. Aboard the Indomitable Dawn, Captain Jiwon Park stood on his bridge, looking down at the world below. The mission was nearly complete, but he felt no satisfaction. Too many had died to reach this point. The wreckage of fleets drifted in space. Behind them, testimony to the price of arrogance. But perhaps his daughter's death had not been meaningless after all. The galaxy was learning that humanity would not be victims, that innocent people under human protection were truly protected. Captain, said Minji quietly. Sir, what happens now? Jiwon turned from the viewing screen. Now we make sure they remember this lesson. And then we go home. The great ship hung in space above the conquered capital, its mission of vengeance complete. The Keltharian Empire had fallen not to conquest, but to justice, and the galaxy would never again underestimate the species called human. The age of human weakness was over. The age of human strength had begun. Park was reviewing the final approach to the Keltharian home system. Intelligence reports suggested that most of the Empire's remaining military forces had gathered around their capital world, but not in defensive positions. Captain, we are receiving multiple surrender offers, reported Communications Officer Taehyung Kang. Every ship in the system is broadcasting messages of capitulation. Any sign of hostile intent? None, sir. In fact, many ships are powering down their weapons as a sign of peaceful intentions. Jiwon nodded. This was what he had hoped for. Surrender without the need for more bloodshed. But he knew the real test would come when they entered the system itself. Signal the fleet that we are entering Kelthar space. Any ship that approaches us will be considered hostile. Yes, sir. Tactical Officer Jihoon Bay was monitoring sensor readings as they approached the outer edge of the system. What he saw surprised him. Captain, long-range sensors show approximately 200 Keltharian ships in the system. But they are not in battle formation. They appear to be waiting. Waiting for what? Unknown, sir. But their weapons are powered down, and their shields are at minimum levels. As the Indomitable Dawn entered Kelthar space, a remarkable thing happened. One by one, the Keltharian ships began moving aside, creating a clear path to the inner system. It was like a honor guard in reverse, defeated enemies clearing the way for their conqueror. Lieutenant Minji Choi watched the display in amazement. Sir, they are literally moving out of our way. I have never seen anything like this. It is called respect, Captain Park said quietly, or fear. Sometimes they look the same. In the Keltharian High Council chamber, the Empire's senior leaders were engaged in the most important debate in their species' history. Some argued for continued resistance. Others demanded immediate surrender. A few suggested abandoning the capital world entirely. General Thakmor, the Empire's senior military commander, stood to address the assembly. His armor bore the scars of dozens of campaigns, but today his voice carried the weight of defeat. Honored counselors, I have served this empire for my entire adult life. I have never retreated from battle, never surrendered to an enemy, but today I must speak a truth that shames me. We cannot win this war. Angry voices rose from the assembly, but he continued. The human ship has capabilities beyond our understanding. Their weapons penetrate any defense we possess. Their shields absorb attacks that should destroy them completely. Their technology is centuries ahead of our own. Then what do you suggest? Demanded Counselor Vrektal. We negotiate. We seek terms that preserve what we can of our civilization. Because if we continue to resist, they will destroy us completely. Emperor Velthanor listened to the debate with growing sadness. These were the same leaders who had supported the attack on the human colony. They had called humans weak, dismissing them as inferior beings unworthy of consideration. Now they cowered in fear of a single human ship. Security Chief Junho Lee was monitoring communications across the Keltharian Empire, looking for signs of organized resistance. What he found instead was chaos. Captain, the Keltharian government appears to be in complete disarray, he reported. Military units are abandoning their posts. Civilian authorities are fleeing or surrendering. Some regions are declaring independence. What about their capital? Defenses? Minimal, sir. Most orbital platforms have been abandoned. Ground-based weapons are powering down. It appears they have decided not to resist our approach. This was better than Captain Park had dared hope. He had expected to fight his way to the capital, possibly destroying the planet's defenses and causing massive casualties. Instead, the Keltharians were essentially surrendering without a fight. As the indomitable dawn approached the inner system, Emperor Velthanor made his decision. He activated the empire-wide communication system, broadcasting his words to every world still under Keltharian control. Citizens of the Empire, this is your Emperor speaking. Today marks the end of an era. Our forces have been defeated by an enemy whose power we underestimated. Our empire, which has stood for 3,000 years, faces destruction. He paused, gathering his strength for what came next. But I will not see our worlds burned and our people slaughtered for the sake of my pride. Therefore, I hereby order all military forces to stand down. All resistance is to cease immediately. We surrender to the human vessel and place ourselves at their mercy. The broadcast ended, leaving the Empire in stunned silence. For the first time in their recorded history, the Keltharians had surrendered unconditionally to a foreign power. On the bridge of the indomitable dawn, the crew listened to the translation of the Emperor's speech with mixed emotions. They had achieved total victory, but the cost in Keltharian lives had been enormous. Captain, we are receiving a direct communication from Emperor Velthanor, reported Taehyung. Put him through. The main screen showed the ancient ruler in his throne room, but now he looked broken and defeated. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute despair. Captain of the human vessel, I am Emperor Velthanor of the Keltharian Empire. I formally surrender my forces and my territory to your authority. I ask only that you show mercy to my people. They followed my orders, but the fault is mine alone. Captain. Park studied the alien leader for a long moment before responding. Emperor, 6 months ago your forces attacked a human colony on Kepler 442b. 3,000 innocent people died, including children. Your government refused to apologize or make amends. You called humans weak and said we deserved to die. Yes, Velthanor said quietly. And I was wrong, terribly, catastrophically wrong. My daughter was among those who died on that colony. She was 23 years old. She believed in peace between species, in cooperation and understanding. Your warriors killed her for sport. The Emperor's head bowed. I have no excuse for what we did, no justification. We acted with arrogance and cruelty, and now we face the consequences. You do indeed. Captain Park's voice was like ice. But I am not here to destroy your empire or enslave your people. I am here to ensure that you never again threaten human colonies. What are your terms? Simple. Your military is disbanded. Your weapons are destroyed. Any ship larger than a patrol vessel is surrendered to human authorities. Your empire becomes a collection of independent worlds under human protection. Velthanor looked up in surprise. You are not demanding tribute? Occupation? Slaves? 3 weeks had passed since the surrender of the Keltharian Empire. The indomitable Dawn remained in orbit above Kelthar Prime, a constant reminder of the new reality that had reshaped the galaxy. During those weeks, Captain Jiwan Park had overseen the most dramatic transformation in galactic politics in recorded history. The dismantling of the Keltharian military had proceeded faster than anyone expected. Faced with the alternative of total destruction, local commanders had eagerly cooperated with human demands. Weapons were destroyed, ships were surrendered, and military bases were converted to civilian use. Captain, the final report from the disarmament teams, said Intelligence Officer Suho Lee, handing over a data pad. All major weapon systems have been destroyed or transferred to human control. The Keltharian military no longer exists as a fighting force. Jiwan reviewed the numbers with satisfaction. Over 5,000 warships dismantled, millions of weapons destroyed. An empire that had terrorized this region of space for millennia had been reduced to a collection of peaceful worlds. But the real victory was not in the destruction of ships or weapons. It was in the message that had been sent across the galaxy. On the bridge, Communications Officer Taehyung Kang was processing the flood of diplomatic messages that arrived daily. Governments from across known space were requesting meetings, trade, agreements, and most importantly, assurances that they would not face the same fate as the Keltharians. Captain, we have another request from the Andromedan Confederation. They want to establish a mutual defense treaty with humanity. What is our response? Standard reply, sir. Humanity seeks peaceful relations with all species. We will not attack those who do not threaten human colonies or interests. It was a simple message, but its implications had changed everything. Several ongoing wars had ended when combatants realized they might face human intervention. Trade routes that had been closed for decades were reopening. The fear of human retaliation was bringing peace to regions that had known only conflict. In his private quarters, Captain Park was composing his final report to Earth Command. The mission had been a complete success, but he knew that success had come at a terrible cost. The official casualty reports made grim reading. Over 200,000 Keltharian military personnel had died in the various battles. Hundreds of ships had been destroyed. Entire families had lost loved ones to human weapons, but he also knew the alternative would have been worse. If they had not acted decisively, other species would have seen humanity as weak. More colonies would have been attacked. More innocent people would have died. His daughter Yeji had believed in peace, but she had also believed in justice. Today, both had been served. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Come in." Fleet Admiral Narration entered, carrying a sealed message container. Her expression was serious but satisfied. "Captain, final orders from Earth Command." Jiwon opened the container and read the message inside. As he read, his expression changed from curiosity to surprise to something approaching relief. "What are our orders, sir?" asked Nara. "We are ordered to return to Earth immediately. The mission is officially complete." "And the Keltharian territories?" "Will be governed by a provisional council made up of representatives from each world. Human observers will monitor the transition to ensure compliance with the peace terms." It was an elegant solution. The Keltharians would govern themselves, but under human oversight. Any return to aggressive policies would be met with swift intervention. Dr. Salman Park was making her final rounds in the medical bay when the announcement came over the ship's communication system. Captain Park's voice echoed through every corridor and compartment. "Attention all hands. This is the captain. I am pleased to announce that our mission has been completed successfully. We have achieved our objectives and delivered the message that humanity intended to send. In recognition of our service, Earth Command has ordered us to return home immediately." A cheer went up from the crew members in the medical bay. After months in enemy territory, facing impossible odds and constant danger, they were finally going home. But Soman knew that home would be different now. They were returning as heroes, as the crew that had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The quiet ship that had left Earth in secret would return to parades and celebrations. Engineer Soyoung Nam was in the engine room, supervising the final preparations for their journey home. The ship's systems had performed magnificently throughout the mission, but the constant combat had taken its toll. "Ma'am, all systems are ready for the journey home," reported her chief assistant. "Estimated travel time to Earth, 6 weeks. Good. Make sure everything is properly maintained. I want this ship to arrive home in perfect condition." As she worked, she thought about the technology that had made their victory possible. Human engineering, refined through centuries of warfare, had proven superior to anything the galaxy could offer. But with that superiority came responsibility. Other species would want to learn human technologies. Some would try to steal them. A few might even attempt to develop countermeasures. The galaxy had become a more dangerous place, even as it had become more peaceful. On the planet below, Emperor Velthanor was meeting with the Provisional Council that would govern the former empire. Representatives from dozens of worlds had gathered to plan their future under human oversight. "The humans have made their requirements clear," he told the assembly. "No military forces larger than planetary defense units. No weapons capable of attacking other star systems. No aggressive actions against any species under human protection." "And in return?" asked a representative from the border worlds. "In return, we are allowed to govern ourselves. Our worlds will not be occupied. Our people will not be enslaved. We will be free to rebuild our civilization, but as a peaceful one." It was more generous than anyone had expected. The humans could have demanded tribute, slaves, territory. Instead, they wanted only to ensure that the Keltharian Empire would never again threaten innocent people. "The humans have shown us mercy," continued Velthanor. But we must never forget the lesson they have taught us. Actions have consequences. Cruelty will be punished. The strong have a responsibility to protect the weak. Across the galaxy, other governments were learning the same lesson. The Zephyrian Republic had announced a new policy of peaceful expansion. The Centauri Alliance had signed non-aggression pacts with all their neighbors. Even the warlike draconian clans had declared a temporary end to their raiding activities. Fear of human intervention was accomplishing what centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve. Admiral Hyunwoo Kim received the news at his border station with mixed emotions. His old friend Ji-won Park was coming home safely, the mission a complete success. But he also knew that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Humanity was no longer a minor species struggling to establish colonies on the frontier. They were now a major galactic power, perhaps the major galactic power. Other species would react to that change in different ways. Some would seek alliance and friendship. Others would plot revenge. A few might even attempt to form coalitions against human expansion. The next few years would be crucial in determining how humanity used its new position. Would they become benevolent protectors, or would power corrupt them as it had corrupted so many species before them? Navigator Haeon Cho plotted their course home through space that was now fundamentally different from when they had left. Human. Colonies that had been isolated and vulnerable were now under the protection of the most feared military in the galaxy. Trade routes that had been dangerous were now safe, patrolled by ships that no one dared to challenge. Diplomatic missions that had been ignored were now receiving responses within hours. The indomitable Dawn had not just won a war, it had rewritten the rules of galactic civilization. As the great ship prepared to depart Kelthar space, Captain Park stood on the observation deck for one final look at the world below. The capital city was already showing signs of recovery. Ships were moving in orderly patterns. The panic that had gripped the population was fading. But in the distance, he could see the monuments being built to commemorate the battle. The Keltharians were making sure that future generations would remember the price of aggression. Captain, Lieutenant Minji Choi approached quietly. "Sir, all departments report ready for departure." "Thank you, Lieutenant. Signal the engine room. Take us home." The indomitable Dawn turned away from Kelthar Prime and began its journey back to human space. Behind them, they left a galaxy that had been forever changed by their passage. Ahead of them lay home, victory, and the responsibility that came with power. As the ship accelerated toward hyperspace, Captain Park sent one final message to the galaxy. It was broadcast on all frequencies, translated into every known language, and transmitted to every corner of civilized space. "This is Captain Ji-won Park of the Terran vessel Indomitable Dawn. Our mission is complete. We have delivered justice for the innocent people murdered on Kepler 442b. Let all who hear this message understand. Humanity remembers. We protect our own. We punish those who harm innocents. The choice of whether we are your friends or your enemies lies with you."